In this video, we are going to learn how to solve absolute value equations. Solving absolute value equations is important because it helps us deal with real-world problems involving distances, differences, and it's essential in various fields like science, engineering, economics, and statistics. Let's review the basics real quick. The absolute value of a number just means to make it positive. It's the distance from zero for that number. So the absolute value of negative 12 is just 12. And the absolute value of 12 is also 12. Now here we have a short equation we need to solve. It says the absolute value of c equals 9. So if we just think about this here for a second, we know that the absolute value of 9 equals 9. But we also know that the absolute value of negative 9 equals 9. So c can equal 9, or c could equal negative 9. So notice we have two answers there. Here we have a special case. The absolute value of c equals negative 9. Well, we just say no solution in that situation. Because when we take the absolute value of a number, it turns it positive. So there's no way that the absolute value of some number will equal a negative number. Now, the key to solving absolute value equations is you get the absolute value part by itself. So here we have the absolute value of k, so we want to get that by itself. And right now we have 8 times the absolute value of k. So we're going to undo that by dividing by 8 on both sides, because 8 divided by 8 is 1. So those 8s cancel out. And that leaves us with the absolute value of k equals 5/8. So now we know that k equals positive 5/8 or k equals negative 5/8. Now notice here, we already have the absolute value all by itself. So in this case, we're going to break it up into two equations. We'll have negative 10y equals 110, and we have negative 10y will equal negative 110. Now before we go ahead and solve these two equations, let's just think about that for another moment, what we just did there. So we know that the absolute value of 110 equals 110. But we also know that the absolute value of negative 110 equals 110. So that's why here we broke up our equation into two different equations. So we'll divide both sides by negative 10. So in this first one, when we do that, we get y equals negative 11. Now here we'll divide both sides by negative 10. And we get y equals positive 11. So y equals negative 11 or y equals positive 11. Now we can check that. So I go back to the original equation. I have negative 10 times negative 11. And we're just making sure that equals 110. So when we multiply these, we get positive 110. And yes, the absolute value of positive 110 does equal 110. Now let's plug in the other answer, positive 11. So we have negative 10 times 11, the absolute value of that. We're just making sure that equals 110. So now we have the absolute value of negative 110 equals 110. And that's true, because when we have the absolute value of a number, we make it positive. So both of our checks worked. Now the big idea here, once again, is when we have an absolute value equation, we want to get the absolute value expression by itself. So here, we'll have to add 8 to both sides. Now that we have the absolute value expression by itself, we'll go ahead and rewrite it with two different equations. So I have z plus 8 equals positive 29, and z plus 8 equals negative 29. So I'll subtract 8 on both sides, and I get z equals 21. It's one of our answers. Subtract 8 on both sides in the other equation, and get z equals negative 37. So z equals 21, or z equals negative 37. One last example here with a little bit more going on. We want to get the absolute value expression by itself. So to do that, we'll need to add 7 to both sides of the equal sign. And negative 3 plus 7, that equals 4. Okay, now that we have the absolute value all by itself, we will go ahead and rewrite it as two equations. So I have negative 2c minus 10 equals positive 4, and negative 2c minus 10 equals negative 4. So I'll go ahead and add 10 to both sides, and divide by negative 2 on both sides. So I have c equals negative 7. I'll do my inverse operations over here on this other equation. So I have c equals negative 7, or c equals negative 3. I hope these examples about solving absolute value equations have been helpful. This is Mr. Ela, signing off.